Say, neighbor, life and favor are upon me. Amen. You just serve notice to him for what God's about to do. You just let him know life and favor is upon you. I want to ask today on this first Sunday of the new year, if you will travel with us to the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 10. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. We want to pick up from our watch night service. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. I want to focus our sermonic spotlight on verses 1 through 6. 2 Corinthians chapter number 10. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. We're going to begin reading there in verse number 1 through verse number 6. We do solicit your prayers and your amens as God has a word for his people on today. We're thankful to just be able to gather on this first Sunday of the new year. Book of 2 Corinthians chapter 10, beginning there at verse number 1. It's there that we find these words recorded. By the humility and gentleness of Christ, I appeal to you. I, Paul, who am timid when face to face with you, but bold towards you when away. I beg you that when I come, I may not have to be as bold as I expect to be towards some people who think that we live by the standards of this world. For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have the divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. And we will be ready to punish every act of disobedience once your obedience is complete. And for a few moments, I'd like to use for a subject or theme, I'm a survivor. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. I'm a survivor. I want to continue today from our watch night worship experience because I want to emphasize the fact that we are survivors. To be here in 2013, many of you went through some things in 2012. And so your testimony is, I survived some stuff. Now, if you just happen to be a person, you didn't go through anything in 2012, we're not hating, we applaud you for that. And we give you praise for that. Give God praise for that. But we understand that many of us had to endure some things in 2012. Because life has its set of challenges for most people, and whether we like it or not, we go through various things. We can experience loss on a whole bunch of levels. And so, you have to go through some things and survive some things. It's the Apostle Paul who is going to help us on today just to appreciate and understand what it means to be a survivor. Because Paul himself has a lot of experience with dealing with loss, having to overcome, and having to say, let me still maintain my faith in God, my commitment to the Lord Jesus Christ. Paul has gone through a lot of things in life. So it's not as though someone is speaking who cannot relate to us. Paul can relate to us. A matter of fact, when he writes the book of 2 Corinthians, he's responding to people who've questioned his apostolic authority from the first letter that he wrote to church in Corinth. When he wrote the first letter, he addressed some issues while he helped plant the church there in Corinth, but he had to address some spiritual issues that he brought to his attention. And as he responded to those issues, after he has departed from the land, from the church area, there was a group of people by the name of Judaizers. These Judaizers were people that believed in sticking with the Mosaic law, the tradition of the day. And so they caused the church in Corinth to become divided and say, I don't think you should really listen to Paul and what he had to say. Now, they didn't argue that what Paul said was wrong. That was not the debate. Was Paul right or wrong? The issue was, does he have the authority to say what he said? So they wanted to question Paul's authority to say, who does he think he is, writing to us to address the spiritual issues? Now, in order that you might relate to this, some of you, maybe you know what it is. You've had your nieces or nephews over. You've had grandchildren over. People in the neighborhood come over to your house. And as long as you was giving them ice cream, everything was good. As long as you provided some candy, everything was good. As long as you took them to the mall and picked them up, everything went well. I'm not talking to anybody. As long as you gave them a little bit of your money, hello somebody, everything went good. But as soon as you begin to say, now you really need to get this part of your life together, that's when they started backing up. That's when they started to say stuff like, who do you think you are? You ain't my mama. You ain't my daddy. Isn't it ironic? Now, you had the authority, to take them to McDonald's. You had authority to drop them off for practice. You had authority to give them some stuff that they liked. But you did not have the authority to say, now, wait a minute now. You need to get this in line. Isn't it strange how people can be sometimes? That's what Paul is up against, because he's having to deal with the people that he shared on the one side. Now, hey, y'all, you need to get this part together. And Brother Hinton, when he shared that, that's when they got offended. They didn't have no problem. Health, wealth, prosperity. You the man, Paul. But as soon as Paul said, now, y'all need to stop this foolishness. You need to put this in check. Oh, well, who Paul think he is. Amen. And it is strange to think in 2013 that some stuff ain't changed. Hello, somebody. Somebody, when you think about what I just said, you say, I know some Judaizers. I know some. Matter of fact, some of them in my family. It is strange. They ain't got no problem taking your money. They'll hit you up and say, can you help me out? But you say, now, you really need to get your life together. Who you think you are? How you going to take their money? They got the authority. You got the authority to give them your money. But you don't have the authority to say, now, you need to get yourself together. Now you almost want to fight. All right. Something wrong with it, ain't it? So Paul has to deal with this group of people that's kind of tripping about his authority concerning what he said in 1 Corinthians. So Paul writes to the people in chapters 1 through 9, and he deals with the faithful, tries to encourage them as a loving parent. You know, after you've given a spanking, he comes back to try to encourage them in chapters 1 through 9. You know what it is sometimes, you remember maybe your mom and daddy whooped you, and then come back and tell you stuff like, that was harder on me than it was on you. Anybody remember that? And you said, still hurting, still crying. They talking about it was harder on them. You think, for real? But you can't afford to say that because you're still in pain. But that's what you're thinking. Hello, somebody. You can relate. I've been there. And so that's what Paul does in chapters 1 through 9. He kind of loves on them and tries to bring them back to be whole. And then in chapter number 10, when we walk into our theme passage, he makes a shift to deal with these people that have been creating confusion and division in the church. He's dealing with these Judaizers. He's dealing with these Christians that are considering going back to Judaism and following the Mosaic law, because he really needs to make sure, hey, y'all need to be on point. So Paul wants to address the issue. Understand this, when you're standing for God, the day will come that you'll get to stand. Don't ever get it twisted that you ain't going to get to say nothing. God has to prepare you to say something sometime. So when we arrive at chapter number 10, verse number 1 in our theme passage, we begin to see Paul's response. Chapter 10, verse number 1. He says, by the humility and gentleness of Christ, I appeal to you, I, Paul. Now, in other translations, those you have your King James, other translations, you'll notice that your verse starts out, I, Paul, myself. He's very emphatic. He wants to make sure that the haters understand. He's making a transition. Because remember, he's in chapter 10. And he already introduced himself in chapter 1. But he's trying to say to the haters, the people that are tripping, he's trying to say, I, Paul, myself, the one you've been talking about, the one you despise, the one you got your mouth on. I'm getting ready to say something. Hello, somebody. He just wants to pause and revisit, make sure they understand that it's him that's got something to say here in verse number 1 here in chapter 10. Now, the New International Version kind of hides it a little bit because he says about the humility and gentleness of Christ. So he wants them to understand that how he's going to respond, and the reason he hasn't responded earlier, the reason he didn't come at them ugly, is because he's coming in the humility and gentleness of Christ. The Greek word there for humility, also translated meekness in some versions, is parutes, and it means an inward grace of the soul. There's something on the inside of Paul that keeps him from getting ugly just because these other folk got ugly. Somebody can relate to that. It's not that you don't know how to get ugly, but you can praise the Lord for the humility, the parutes that's on the inside of you that keeps you from being ugly. Hello, somebody. It's basically having a power on the inside. Now, the world tries to paint the picture that if you are meek, if you're humble, that you're weak. No, you're very much strong. They don't understand that you got some stuff you could say, can say, could do. Yeah, you just won't do because of the humility, the thing that the inward grace is on the inside of you that keeps you from letting them have it. Hello, somebody. Because Paul could have let those Judaizers have it. He could have told the people in Corinth, why y'all tripping? You know I started the church. What's up? Y'all let somebody that take you away. And be careful with this. That people come in your life trying to take you away from your blessing. Because they should have embraced the fact God has been good to us. Paul introduced Christ to us. But there are some people in the world, none of you of course. There are some people in the world though that because they don't want you to be blessed, will try to talk you away from your blessing. Be careful of folk that will try somehow that they ain't blessing you, but they want to take you away from your blessing. Can I get a witness in here? Y'all almost acting like y'all knew somebody like that. See, some people are like that. These Judaizers have that characteristic. But Paul says, now rather than me respond in an ugly fashion, it's the humility on the inside. There are people that have a meekness on the inside. They just go to their prayer closet. Amen. Don't ever get it twisted. Don't ever think that they just so saved. Amen. Don't get it twisted. They got an inward grace that drives them to their prayer closet where they talk to God. Hello, rather than tell you some stuff. Really, they're going to tell you off. But they went to God in prayer and they had a talk with Jesus. The inward grace, and now you just go on, just keep marching, stay focused. Don't get sidetracked. And so that you know you don't disrupt what the Lord really wants to do in your life. And so Paul starts out saying, hey, I got this humility, this inward grace, parutes in the Greek, that's on the inside of me. And it manifests itself through gentleness. The behavior that represents this power that's on the inside is my gentleness. That I don't get crazy just because somebody else got crazy. I ain't gonna click because somebody else clicked. But the inward grace is going to keep me and sustain me. And Paul talks about how he was both timid and bold. What Paul was saying that despite what's going on in his life as a survivor, he has great balance. That he knows, okay, I know how to be meek and humble, but I can be bold. Don't get it twisted. Paul's not a chump. And it doesn't mean that Paul's dumb, because Paul is very learned. Got a great educational background. But what Paul was saying is he knows how to be balanced in his life. I need to talk to the survivors as you march through 2013. Make sure you maintain your balance. And you maintain your balance by staying connected to God. Now Paul warned a little bit this group in verse number 2. I won't get into it because he wanted to warn them, y'all really overlooking his power. Because they're trying to question his authority. But Paul's like, man, I really got power. I don't want to display it with you. See, while he's meek, he's still anointed. While he's meek, he still believes God. While he's meek, he's still connected to the Lord. Don't play him cheap. Don't play him as though he's nothing or nobody. Because the Apostle Paul, despite what the Judaizers were saying, he's still an apostle. He's still God's servant. Are y'all hearing me in here? So Paul says in verse number 3 there, chapter number 10, in verse 3, the text says, for though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. So Paul again is speaking to the balance. He said, now there is real life. While we live in the life, in the world down here, we wage war on a whole different level. We don't wage war like the world. So he speaks to the fact that there is a world side and a spiritual side. In essence, he's saying now we live over here, but we're going to wage a war over here. And this war is going to be in the spiritual arena. I need you to catch this now. As you march through 2013, because you are a survivor, understand that much of what you need to do is not so much in this realm. Come on, somebody. Your real battle, if you're going to have victory, is that I got to wage war in the spiritual realm. I need to get busy in the spiritual realm so that life don't mess me up. Y'all won't hear me in here. Because the devil is busy in the real world. And if you're going to overcome some of the ploys and plots of the enemy, you've got to war in the spiritual arena. And so Paul understood that. He said, man, I'm going to have to wage some war in the spiritual side. And the part of my having balance is understanding that God has equipped me to fight on the spiritual side. See, the haters were looking at him, only seeing him in the flesh. That's why people question your authority. It's not because you claim to be perfect. They got some crazy notion that, well, who are you? I see you. I see the pants you put on. But they miss the anointing. Hello, somebody. That's on your life. I think I just said something. Y'all missed it. See, you got to be careful. You're sitting there thinking you only see your neighbor through the flesh. But what if God has an assignment on their life? And so what they share with you is an impartation from what God has for you. You're looking at them in the flesh because you're minimizing what they are in the spirit. Hello, somebody. Sometimes it's your own mama, your own daddy. You're thinking, I know them in the flesh, but do you know them in the spirit? Hello, somebody. Because you're thinking, now how did mama or daddy know that was going on? Because they've already tapped in to the spirit realm. You're looking at him in the natural realm. So all you can see and think about, Brother Chris, is here's what they have done. Here's what I've seen them do, and here's where they at now. But if they know Jesus, yeah, y'all don't hear me. If they're connected to God, see, they got another assignment on their life that will change your life if you just see them from the spiritual realm. You're questioning their authority in the natural, but the real deal is they're warring on your behalf in the spirit. Matter of fact, you wouldn't be where you are right now if mama hadn't took her nappy hair, got down on her rusty knees, and had a little talk with Jesus on your crazy behind's head. Can I get a witness up in here? You can't tell me that some folk you see, you don't understand who they are. See, some folk think if you ain't driving a Benz, you ain't anointed, but the devil is a liar. There's some folk living straight up in the hood. They can go down on their knees and rain happens fail. Can I get a witness up in here? Paul says we're waging war. And we don't fight like the world side. But he said in verse number 4, he talks about the weapons we got. He said the weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. In other words, you can't go to Walmart and find the weapons we're going to have to fight with in 2013. You can't go to the mall and find the weapons that you're going to need to be a survivor in 2013. He said, on the contrary, we got some other weapons. He calls them in the NIV divine power to demolish strongholds. The King James Version said, the weapons of this warfare are not carnal, but mighty, Brother Rodney, through God for the pulling down of strongholds. Somebody needs to hear me in here. Before you go another day, in 2013, letting demons set up camp in your face, you ought to stand up today on January the 6th, 2013, and say, wait a minute, devil, I got some weapons, and they're mighty for the pulling down of strongholds. Who am I talking to? Can I get a few witnesses in here that believe that you in touch with some weapons that can be used to pull down every stronghold of the enemy? Do y'all hear me in here? I hear you, Holy Ghost. I told us the other night, you got two weapons, the name of Jesus and the blood. Is there anybody in here that still believes that there's power in the blood of Jesus? I got news for you. If you stop by today, the Lord told me to tell you that the blood is a demon buster. Do you hear me? Before you go to another day in 2013, you better serve notice to the enemy. You got a weapon that can pull down every stronghold. You just need to plead the blood. Do y'all hear me in here? What you saying, preacher? Plead the blood over that son. Plead the blood over that daughter. Plead the blood over your house. Plead the blood over the folk on your job. Plead the blood over your mind. Plead the blood over your body. Plead the blood over your neighbors, because there's power in the blood. The blood will pull down every stronghold. If you're a believer in here, just turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, it's time to pull it down. Did y'all hear me? We're not going to go through taking every blow that the devil's trying to send. It's time to pull it down. Do y'all hear me in here? It's time to plead the blood. Well, my little time is up today, but I got two more weapons that you got on your behalf. You got praise and you got worship. As you go through 2013, you better know how to praise him. You better know how to worship him. Let the devil know you're going to pull down every stronghold. What you saying, preacher? The devil gets mad. He gets upset when he throws you a blow and you still rise up and say, thank you, Jesus. He gets upset when he gave you his best shot and you still saying, hallelujah. You still giving God the praise. The devil can't stand it when you're knocked down, but you keep lifting him up because you're determined to pull down every stronghold. Is there anybody in here this morning? You're determined to pull down every of your life. It's in your spirit. You survived for a reason. That God kept you for 2013. And now you can't turn around. You can't go back. I wonder today, would you get it in your mind? Get it in your spirit. You got to pull it down. And you got weapons to pull it down. Anybody in here can be a witness and won't you? And a testifying saint. That now that you think about it, you got some weapons that you used before to pull down every stronghold. People counted you out, but God counted you in. You pulled down that stronghold. Anybody in here can be real enough. You were strung out on drugs, but you pulled down that stronghold. Anybody in here, you were caught up in depression, but you pulled down that stronghold. Anybody in here, you had low self-esteem, but you pulled down that stronghold. Anybody in here ever been sick in your body, but you pulled down that stronghold? I dare you to profess over yourself that the hand has not been told, that God will make a way somehow. Won't he do it, y'all? Anybody in here, you feeling a pulling down praise party up in here, up in here. You got some stuff, there ain't no way you gonna go through. Not another moment, you about to pull it down. Somebody in here, you've been through hell and hot water, and in your time to pull it down, in your time to pull it down, in your time to pull it down. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God for the pulling down of strongholds. God bless you to survive so you can pull down the strongholds. Declare in your spirit, you don't have any other choice but to be victorious. Because you're going to pull down the stronghold. Whatever that stronghold is, pull it down. The one that's messing up your family, pull that stronghold down. The one that's keeping your family from coming together, pull it down. The one that's on your finances, pull that stronghold down. Say, I'm pulling down the stronghold. The one that's keeping you from going where God wants to take you, I'm pulling that stronghold down. Paul wants us to understand you got the weapon. There's still power in the blood. Still power in the name of Jesus. There's still power when you praise God. When the enemy knows surely the goodness. See, somebody here right now listening to me, the devil didn't think you'd come. Based on what you've been through in 2012, surely the goodness you ain't gonna make it first Sunday. But you just let him know, you just spoke to him and said, no, devil, despite all the hell I've been through, I'm still gonna give God praise. Still gonna magnify his name. Still gonna lift him up.